Kelly Clarkson's ex-husband, Brandon Blackstock, is seeking $500,000 in spousal support. Here to tell us more about the story is Kaine Fisher, Rose Law Group partner and family law director.
So, I want to talk a little bit about this Kelly Clarkson divorce from her husband out of California. It's a really outrageous situation. When you first read the article, you think, wow, the amount that this guy is requesting in terms of family support is outrageous. And frankly, you'd be right if we were in Arizona, but this case is out of Southern California. I don't know specifically which court, but I presume it somewhere in the Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, San Diego area. And cases like this are not atypical. You see them all the time. You read about them in the tabloids. I mean, it's just crazy numbers we're talking about here. He's asking for $436,000 a month in family support, which is just an astronomical figure. But again, I don't have access to all of the financials of the parties, but that would assume that Kelly Clarkson earns at least $10 million a month, or if not more, in income to justify and substantiate that type of request. Now, there may be a little bit of posturing going on with the lawyers where they're asking for an exorbitant amount, expecting to settle for something less. I mean, there's some of that gamespersonship that might be going on, but the numbers are outrageous. They're gaudy. We'd get laughed out of court if we were making those types of claims in Maricopa County. I do represent professional athletes, doctors, and lawyers. So we do have pretty large spousal maintenance requests in those cases. Business owners also, they have significant monthly revenue that's coming in either through their primary source of employment or residual income from investments, those types of things, even rental income and other sort of spin-off income. But to go into court and ask for spousal maintenance, monthly spousal maintenance in the amount of over $100,000 is pretty outrageous. He's asking for $2 million in upfront contribution towards his attorney's fees. Boy, I bet his lawyers are just foaming at the mouth to turn over every stone and look at every single little piece of property that they own everywhere to try to expend that amount of fees. I mean, that's just outrageous. In Arizona, to get an award of temporary fees is pretty hard to get. For the most part, judges feel like those temporary orders are impediments to settlement. They create barriers to settlement. And, so they usually defer that type of issue to a final trial anyway. Now, in the higher wage earner type cases or higher net worth cases, there's much more of a consideration as to whether to award fees to the underprivileged, let's call it spouse, the out spouse, the non-breadwinning spouse, whatever you want to call it, because there is a very strong undercurrent philosophy in Arizona of making sure that litigants have equal footing, so that one is not significantly disadvantaged in the discovery disclosure process. But again, $2 million, I mean, wow. If that was the norm here in Arizona, I would have my entire staff working on the case, because it must mean that there are such complicated issues and so many assets that it would take four of us to try to figure it out within a timely manner, which I don't frankly think that's the case. So again, a pretty outrageous amount. But again, anytime you see one of these articles out of Southern California, you're bound to see something crazy like this. And I am a little curious. There were a lot of comments that were made in the article, and they were kind of innuendos or suggestions, but there wasn't really any details to latch onto. And I haven't done any independent investigation into Kelly Clarkson's divorce, but there was some interesting comments made about some disputes they were having about the kids or their children. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if there's parental fitness issues being alleged. I'm sure that would be very interesting to the gossip columns to latch onto and try to talk about whether one of them's got a drug problem or an alcohol problem or something like that, or there was domestic violence or abuse or something. I don't know. There was just some innuendo and some suggestions that they were having problems. And it could have also just been the day-to-day stuff, which school the kids go to, where they stay primarily. It does look like Kelly was afforded primary care of the kids, which would suggest, at least in Arizona, which is a very, very big equal parenting time state, would suggest either there was a logistical issue or a fitness issue or something that would justify not allowing Mr. Blackstock to have equal time with his kids. You know, in all honesty, I mean, it's a short marriage. I know in today's time, 7 years may feel like a long time to be married in light of the very significantly increased divorce rates. But 7 years is not a marriage of what we would call in Arizona a marriage of long duration, or it's maybe kind of close, but to getting into that discussion, but it's not. I mean, I don't think a judge says, "Oh, you guys are married a long time." And that factor really plays into how long the spousal maintenance award is.
Mm.
So if I were Mr. Blackstock and I were married to Kelly Clarkson for 7 years, I certainly wouldn't be expecting a meal ticket for the next 20 years. I mean, at some point, this gentleman's going to have to pull himself up by his bootstraps and go get a job or do something to sustain himself. Now, I will say when it comes to child support, in order to prevent like a castle to a shack type of a situation, I assume California has, I know they have a different way of calculating child support there, but I assume there is a consideration for high net worth people in making sure to prevent the castle to shack result. So he could get a significant sum of money as enforced child support so that he can provide a home for these kids when the kids are there with him exercising time, so that they don't, you know, like think, oh God, we got to go to dad's cruddy house or whatever. That said, you know, there's some pretty historical case law that really kind of asks the question of how many ponies does a kid really need? And, you know, I mean, child support is not spousal maintenance. It's not for Mr. Blackstock to go and
Live his lavish life.
hog off of Kelly's money just because he was married to her for 7 years. So it's got to be a little bit tied to what the kids' needs are too. It's not like we're just going to reallocate or shuffle funds from one person to the other just so that the kids can have a billion toys at both houses. I mean, it's kind of not the way that works. The law is going to really look at what are the needs of the kids. I mean, what do they really need? And 10 ponies probably isn't the answer to that question.